She offered him her hand in front of her people, and he didn't hesitate. The diplomat's gamble, the air recyclers on Station Concordia hummed with mechanical persistence, struggling to filter the tension that seemed to permeate every corridor. Zara Okafor pressed her palm against the cool metal wall outside Conference Room 7, forcing herself to breathe steadily while reviewing her notes one final time. 3 months of preparation had led to this moment. First contact negotiations between the Human Colonial Federation and the Zarathi Empire, two civilizations that had been circling each other warily across disputed star systems for over a decade. Through the reinforced viewport beside her, she could see the Zarathi flagship hanging in space like a predatory bird, its biometallic hull shifting between deep bronze and silver as it absorbed and reflected Concordia's artificial sunlight. Somewhere, aboard that vessel was Commander Thane Korvac, the military leader who would speak for his people today. Zara had studied every available recording of Zarathi culture, learned their formal greeting patterns, memorized the subtle differences between respectful acknowledgement and submission in their body language. What she hadn't prepared for was how her pulse would quicken at the thought of meeting him face to face. Okafor. Ambassador Reeves appeared beside her, his expression carrying the weight of 5 decades in diplomatic service. Remember, we're here to establish basic trade protocols, nothing more. The Colonial Senate wants mineral rights to the Kepler system, but they'll settle for non-aggression if the Zarathi prove too difficult. Don't let academic curiosity override practical concerns. Zara nodded, though privately she believed the ambassador was thinking too small. The Zarathi weren't just another species to negotiate with. They were warriors who had survived 3 extinction-level events, rebuilt their civilization from ash and crystal, developed technologies that bordered on miraculous. If humanity could truly ally with them rather than simply coexist, both species could reach heights neither could achieve alone. The conference room doors slid open with a soft pneumatic hiss, revealing a space designed for exactly this kind of historic moment. Holographic displays showed star charts and trade routes, while adaptive seating accommodated both human and Zarathi physiology. The human delegation was already seated, 6 officials in formal diplomatic attire trying to project confidence they didn't feel. Then the Zarathi entered and Zara's breath caught in her throat. Commander Thane Korvac stood nearly 7 feet tall, his frame powerful but elegant in the way of natural predators. His skin held the metallic sheen she'd seen in recordings, but in person the effect was mesmerizing. Scales that shifted from deep silver to warm bronze depending on the angle of light, creating patterns that seemed to flow across his form like liquid metal. His hair, the color of burnished copper, was bound back in the complex braids that indicated military rank. And his eyes were amber flecked with gold, intelligent and alert. And when they fixed on her for a moment across the room, Zara felt something electric run down her spine. "Honored humans," he said, his voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate in her chest. "I am Commander Thane Korvac of the Crystal Fleet. I speak for High Regent Vax and the Zarathi Empire in these proceedings." His accent gave standard Galactic a musical quality, turning diplomatic formality into something almost poetic. Ambassador Reeves stood, offering the standard human greeting, a slight bow with hands clasped behind his back. "Commander Korvac, I am Ambassador Reeves representing the Human Colonial Federation. We welcome this opportunity for dialogue between our peoples." Thane's response was immediate and graceful. He placed his right hand over his heart and extended, his left toward Reeves, palm down, fingers spread. To human eyes it looked aggressive, possibly threatening. Zara saw Reeves stiffen, heard the sharp intake of breath from the other diplomats. What they didn't understand was that among the Zarathi, this was the highest form of respect, offering your heart while extending protection. The downward palm wasn't dominance but shelter, the spread fingers representing the 5 pillars of Zarathi honor: strength, wisdom, loyalty, sacrifice, and unity. "Commander Korvac offers you the greeting of peers," Zara said quickly, before the misunderstanding could poison the entire encounter. Among his people, the extended hand provides symbolic protection to honored guests. She could feel Reeves's sharp look, but Thane's expression showed surprise and something that might have been gratitude. His amber eyes found hers again, and this time he held her gaze for a long moment. "The human diplomat speaks truly," he said, lowering his hand. "I had not expected such understanding of our ways." The negotiations began formally, with both sides presenting their opening positions. The humans wanted mining rights to 3 uninhabited systems, offering advanced medical technology and agricultural innovations in return. The Xerathi countered with territorial guarantees and defensive pacts, making it clear that they viewed the humans as potential allies against the hostile Kethmaran Confederacy that threatened both their regions of space. Zara found herself watching Thane more than she should have, noting how his scales shifted color subtly with his emotional state. Darker when he was considering a point, lighter when he was pleased by something. She began to recognize patterns, the slight tilt of his head that indicated genuine interest, the way his fingers drummed against the table when he was restraining himself from speaking. Hours passed with little progress. The human delegation wanted concrete economic benefits, while the Xerathi spoke in terms of honor and mutual defense. The two sides weren't just negotiating different terms. They were approaching the entire concept of alliance from fundamentally different worldviews. "Perhaps," Thane said during a brief recess, his voice carrying a note of frustration, "humans and Xerathi are too different to find common ground. Your people think in terms of profit and loss. Mine think in terms of survival and honor. That's not fair," Zara found herself saying, earning sharp looks from her colleagues. "Humans understand honor. We just express it differently. And Xerathi understand practical concerns. You wouldn't have survived 3 near extinctions without adapting your ideals to reality." Thane's expression shifted, scales brightening with what she was learning to recognize as interest. "You speak as if you know our history. I've studied it. The fall of the first crystal cities, the plague of the silicon wastes, the war against the void hunters. Every time your people faced annihilation, you changed without losing what made you Xerathi. That's not just survival. That's wisdom." Ambassador Reeves cleared his throat pointedly, but Thane was leaning forward now, his full attention focused on Zara. "And what do you believe makes us Xerathi, human diplomat?" The question felt like a test, but also like something more personal. "You believe that strength shared is strength multiplied. That honor isn't about individual glory, but about ensuring your people's future. That the greatest victory is the one that makes your children's children safer than you were." Something profound shifted in Thane's expression. His scales took on a warm golden tone she hadn't seen before, and when he spoke, his voice carried a resonance that made her feel like they were the only 2 people in the room. "Among my people," he said slowly, "such understanding between species is considered sacred, a gift that should be honored." He stood then, moving with that fluid grace that made her think of water over stone, and approached her side of the table. The other humans tensed, but Zara felt no fear, only anticipation, and something deeper she didn't want to name. Thane stopped directly in front of her and performed a gesture she recognized from her cultural studies. Both hands extended, palms up, fingers slightly curved. It was the traditional offer of partnership, the gesture used when Xerathi warriors chose their battle companions, when merchants sealed permanent trading relationships, when potential mates declared their intentions. Zara's heart hammered against her ribs. This was a moment that could define the future of both species, and Thane was offering her a choice. She could politely acknowledge the gesture and continue with formal negotiations, or she could accept the partnership he offered and bind herself to him in a way that would change everything. She was aware of Ambassador Reeves hissing her name in warning, of the other Xerathi delegates watching with expressions of shock and interest, of the historic weight of this moment pressing down on her shoulders. Without hesitation, Zara stood and placed her hands in his, palm to palm, feeling the warmth of his metallic skin and the slight texture of his scales. The contact sent electricity racing up her arms, and she saw his pupils dilate with surprise and something deeper. "I accept the partnership of Thane Korvac," she said clearly, using the formal Xerathi phrase she'd memorized but never expected to need. "May our bond serve both our peoples." The room erupted. Ambassador Reeves was on his feet, demanding to know what she thought she was doing. The Zarathi delegates were speaking rapidly in their own language, their scales shifting through colors that indicated excitement, shock, and approval in equal measure. But Zara barely heard them. Thane's hands were warm around hers, his amber eyes wide with an emotion she couldn't name but felt echoing in her own chest. When he spoke, his voice was soft enough that only she could hear. "Do you understand what you have done, Zara Okafor?" Hearing her name in his resonant voice made her shiver. "I've accepted a partnership with someone I trust to help both our peoples find common ground." Thane's expression grew complex, shifting between wonder and something that might have been concern. Among Zarathi, the partnership gesture, it is not merely political. It creates bonds that go deeper than alliance. You have offered yourself as my chosen companion, my heart-bound partner. This is... He paused, seeming to struggle with the concept. This is what your people would call marriage, but stronger, more permanent. Zara felt the world tilt around her. She had just accidentally married an alien commander in front of both their diplomatic delegations. The rational part of her mind screamed that she should explain the misunderstanding, back away from a commitment that could destroy her career and complicate the negotiations beyond repair. Instead, looking into Thane's remarkable eyes and feeling the rightness of their joined hands, she smiled. "Then I guess we should make this partnership work for everyone." The gesture that changed everything brought into the consequences of connection. The first thing Zara noticed when she woke was that she could feel Thane's heartbeat as if it were her own. She sat up in the narrow bunk aboard the Zarathi transport vessel Crystal Dawn, pressing her hand to her chest in confusion. The rhythm was different from her own, slower, deeper, with a slight syncopation that should have been impossible to perceive. Yet there it was, a steady pulse that seemed to resonate in her bones. 3 days had passed since the partnership ceremony on Concordia, 3 days of chaos and emergency communications between both governments. Ambassador Reeves had been recalled to Earth for immediate debriefing, while the Zarathi High Council demanded Thane's return to explain his unprecedented actions. The peace negotiations were suspended indefinitely, and somehow, Zara had found herself aboard a Zarathi ship bound for Kepler 402b, Thane's homeworld. "The bond manifests differently for each pair," came a voice from the doorway. Zara looked up to see Dr. Marcus Webb, the human xenobiologist who had volunteered to accompany her as both scientific observer and cultural liaison. His usually cheerful expression was tight with concern. "According to the Zarathi texts I've been studying, some partners share emotions, others share physical sensations. A few rare pairs develop limited telepathic connection." "And what am I sharing?" Zara asked, though she suspected she already knew. His life force, apparently. His pulse, his breathing patterns, probably his general state of health. Marcus settled into the chair across from her bunk, his tablet displaying scrolling Zarathi text. "It's actually quite beautiful from a biological standpoint. Their nervous systems can create quantum entanglement at the cellular level, allowing..." "Marcus." Zara's voice cut through his enthusiasm. "What does this mean for me? For us?" The scientist's expression sobered. "It means you're genuinely bonded, now not just ceremonially. The Zarathi don't have divorce, Zara. They don't have separation or annulment. When they choose a partner, it's literally for life. If one dies, the other often follows within days." Zara felt her stomach drop. She had known the partnership was significant, but this was beyond anything she had imagined. She was bound to Thane Korvac not just politically or emotionally, but biologically, permanently. As if summoned by her thoughts, she felt a warm presence in the back of her mind. Not thoughts exactly, but an awareness that wasn't entirely her own. Concern, curiosity, and underneath it all something that felt remarkably like affection. "He's coming," she said without knowing how she knew. Moments later, Thane appeared in the doorway, his amber eyes immediately finding hers. His scales were a muted silver blue that she was learning indicated worry, and when he spoke, his voice carried the formal tone he used when trying to maintain diplomatic distance. "Zara Okafor, Dr. Webb. I trust you have found the accommodations acceptable?" "They're fine, Thane. Zara stood, moving toward him instinctively. The closer she got, the stronger the sensation of his presence became in her mind. But I think we need to talk about what's happening to us. Thane's scale shifted to a warmer bronze, and she felt an echo of relief through their connection. You are experiencing the bond effects. His heartbeat, Marcus said, making notes on his tablet. Fascinating. The quantum entanglement appears to be selective, focusing on life-sustaining biological functions rather than higher brain activity. Thane's attention shifted to the scientist, his expression growing wary. You study our bonding practices? With respect and scientific curiosity, Marcus assured him. I'm trying to understand what Zara is experiencing so I can help both your peoples comprehend the implications. And what have you learned? Marcus glanced between them, his expression growing, serious. That what you two have done is unprecedented. There are no records in either human or Zarathi history of successful cross-species bonding. Theoretically, it should be impossible. The quantum frequencies are too different, the biological markers incompatible. Yet here we are, Zara said, softly, still feeling the steady pulse of Thane's life force beneath her own. Yet here you are, Marcus agreed, which means you're both either incredibly lucky or this connection was always meant to exist. The transport shuddered slightly as it dropped out of hyperspace. And through the viewport, Zara caught her first glimpse of the Xerathi homeworld. Kepler 442b hung in space like a jewel, its surface covered in crystalline structures that caught and reflected the light of its binary stars in breathtaking displays of color. Cities rose in spiraling towers that seemed to grow organically from the landscape, connected by graceful bridges that sparkled like captured starlight. It's beautiful, she whispered. Thane moved to stand beside her at the viewport, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from his skin. My people have spent 3,000 years rebuilding after the Great Dying. Every crystal spire represents our refusal to surrender, our determination to create beauty from devastation. Through their bond, she felt his pride in his world, his people, and underneath it all, his fear of what awaited them on the surface. The High Council had not been pleased by news of his bonding to a human. Some viewed it as contamination, others as betrayal of Zarathi purity. Whatever happens down there, Zara said quietly, we face it together. Thane's hand found hers, his scales warm against her palm. Together, he agreed. The landing pad at the capital city of Vexithara was surrounded by crystalline spires that rose like frozen music into the amber sky. As they disembarked, Zara was struck by the alien beauty of everything around her, the way the buildings seemed to pulse with internal light, the hover vehicles that moved in graceful arcs between the towers, the Zarathi themselves with their metallic skin and elegant movements. She was also acutely aware of the stares they attracted. Zarathi turned to watch as Thane escorted her and Marcus through the city, their scales shifting through colors that indicated curiosity, suspicion, and in some cases, outright hostility. They're not happy about me being here, Zara observed. Change is difficult for my people, Thane replied diplomatically, but through their bond she felt his own tension. We have survived by maintaining our ways, our purity of purpose. A human partner challenges everything they believe about Zarathi identity. They were met at the council chambers by a delegation of Zarathi officials, their formal robes marking them as high-ranking members of the government. At their head stood a female who looked remarkably like Thane, the same amber eyes, the same elegant bone structure, though her scales held more silver than bronze. Commander Korvac, she said, her voice carrying clear disapproval. You return to us changed. Regent Lysa, Thane replied formally. May I present my bond partner, diplomatic attaché Zara Okafor, and Dr. Marcus Webb of the Human Colonial Federation. Lysa's gaze fixed on Zara with laser intensity. So this is the human who has claimed my brother's life force. Tell me, alien, do you understand what you have taken from us? The hostility in her voice was unmistakable, but Zara had spent too many years in diplomatic training to be intimidated by posturing. I understand that I've entered a bond that ties me to Thane for life. What I hope to learn is whether that bond can serve both our peoples or only create division. Spoken like a true diplomat, Lisa said with a bitter laugh. All words and political calculation. Do you feel anything for him beyond what your position might gain? The question caught Zara off guard, but before she could respond, she felt Thane's emotional state shift through their bond, a spike of protective anger mixed with something deeper and more vulnerable. The intensity of it nearly staggered her. I feel... Zara paused, trying to find words for sensations that had no human equivalent. I feel his heartbeat in my chest, his concern for his people, as if it were my own. I feel his fear that this bond might hurt those he's sworn to protect and his hope that it might help them instead. If that's not real feeling, Regent Lisa, then I don't know what is. Lisa's expression shifted slightly, her scales taking on a more neutral tone. You speak of the bond sense. This is unexpected. Human nervous systems should not be compatible with our quantum frequencies. Yet they are, Thane said firmly. Zara experiences the connection as strongly as any Xerathi partner. Perhaps this suggests our species are not as different as we believed. Or perhaps, came a new voice from the chamber entrance, it suggests something far more significant. The speaker was ancient even by Xerathi standards, his scales more silver than metallic, his movements careful but still graceful. The other, officials immediately showed deep respect, and Zara felt Thane's recognition through their bond. High Regent Vax, Thane said formally, you honor us with your presence. I honor curiosity, Vax replied, his wise eyes studying Zara intently. In 3 millennia of recorded history, we have never encountered a species capable of true bonding with Xerathi. The implications are profound. He approached slowly, and Zara felt no threat from him, only intense scientific interest and something that might have been wonder. May I? He asked, extending one aged hand toward her. Zara looked to Thane, who nodded slightly. She placed her hand in Vax's, immediately feeling a strange resonance. Not the deep connection she shared with Thane, but something lighter, more like an echo. Vax's eyes widened. Remarkable. You carry his quantum signature, but it hasn't overwhelmed your own. Instead, they exist in harmony. He released her hand, his expression thoughtful. In our oldest texts, there are prophecies of the bridge builders, beings who could unite the scattered children of the stars through bonds of understanding and shared purpose. We assumed these were metaphors. And now? Lisa asked, her voice carrying a note of uncertainty. Now I wonder if the universe has sent us exactly what we need, Vax replied. The Kethmaran Confederacy threatens both our peoples. Alone neither humans nor Xerathi may be strong enough to survive their expansion. But together, with bonds that transcend mere political alliance. He trailed off. But the implication was clear. Zara felt Thane's excitement through their connection, mixed with hope and determination. You're suggesting that what Thane and I have done could be replicated? Zara asked. That other humans and Xerathi could form similar bonds? I am suggesting, Vax said carefully, that your bond represents a new possibility, one that should be studied, understood, and perhaps encouraged. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Zara realized they were discussing not just her future with Thane, but the potential evolution of both species, a future where the barriers between human and Xerathi dissolved into something new and unprecedented. The Human Colonial Federation will never approve, Marcus said quietly. They're already demanding Zara's return for psychological evaluation. The idea of intentional cross-species bonding will terrify them, Zara finished. But it shouldn't. If Thane and I can make this work, if we can prove that connection doesn't mean loss of identity but expansion of it, she looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of each Xerathi official in turn. Give us time. Let us return to the negotiations. Work together to build the peace both our peoples need. Let us show everyone what's possible when we choose understanding over fear. Thane's hand found hers, his scales warm and reassuring. Through their bond, she felt his absolute commitment to their shared future. "We stand together," he said formally, addressing both the Zarathi Council and the wider universe. "Human and Zarathi, bonded in purpose and partnership. Whatever comes, we face it as one." High Regent Vax smiled, the expression transforming his ancient features. "Then let us begin building the future we all need. Together." As the Council, session continued late into the amber twilight of Kepler 442b. Zara felt a deep sense of rightness settle in her chest. The bond with Thane had been impulsive, unexpected, potentially catastrophic for both their careers. But sitting in a chamber of crystal and starlight, planning a future that neither species could achieve alone, she realized it had also been exactly what the universe needed. Some gambles, she thought, feeling Thane's pulse steady and strong beneath her own, were worth taking regardless of the odds.